Oh, come on now. Start. There we go. It is the Book of Job tonight. The lovely Book of Job. Let's see. Boom. All right, I will open the Discord voice if I can find it. That is open. David, I feel like you're faster than I am. I feel like you are here before I am really here. Evening fam, in the past, I disliked Sunday evenings as I had to go to school or work the next morning. I love Sunday evenings now as I get to study the Bible with all of you. Love y'all, David. David. How about that Gospel of Judas, David? That's interesting stuff, no? Pretty wild stuff. And it just gets worse or better, I guess, depending on your perspective. Let's see. Mikkel, second here. I was going to trash talk you, David, and then you had to go and be all sweet and stuff. I was talking to my child about that today too. Like, you got to learn how to sweet talk people. You got to learn how to butter people up. Then they can't be mean to you. If you're just very sweet, it's hard for people to be mean to you. Oh God, what does Ghost have in here? I gotta look at this when we're done. Power transformer, okay. The transformer relay is a basic Pantheon template referring back to the flowchart you posted. It was the flowchart. All right, this was the flowchart. Invisible spirit. Unnameable. Cloud of light. Autogenes equals great angel, god of light. Adam's Aeon. Aldeba. Oh man, we're getting into some good stuff with all this. Interesting. I gotta look through this when we're done. I didn't see any of that. Interesting, man. He is the worst. Okay, I think we're gonna do game night this coming Friday, y'all. Patricia had said something about this past Friday. I didn't see it in time, so sorry. But maybe this coming Friday we can do game night. So plan on that. We'll do Friday night at like 6 or 7 Central. I'll post the poll. Kat, please remind me. And that'd be fun. It's been a while. We have so many freaking games for game night. It's insane. We have the majority of the games that they offer. Largely thanks to Ghost, because he made a donation to the game cause. And so we got even more than I had already bought. So let's do that this Friday. It's been too long. Too long. Butter people up. Yes. It's the way to go, man. Like, don't argue. Don't apologize. Sometimes do, but sometimes don't. Sometimes just be real sweet. Just be real sweet. Good evening to all you wonderful, weird people. That's well said. Well said. I like buttering up a baked potato, says David. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sweet potato is the way to go. Go said, look at all the beautiful coils on that transformer chart. Cat, this is a play on snakes. And it is true. It does look like snakes. What is the server shop on Discord? It's been there for a long time with this money flying around, and I've never looked. Never looked. God the Son, Jesus Christ saves. The current holder of the longest YouTube username. Good to see you. Hey there. S-Mill, what's going on? I like buttering up Texas Roadhouse rolls. That's an understatement. Understatement. Yeah, Kat, don't bring the snake out. You might have somebody get mad at me. Remember? Remember, they're evil because a mythology says so. So therefore, it is so. It is so. We have 19, 20, and 21 tonight. Tuesday, in case you did not see, we are doing like an intro to philosophy. I know a lot of us probably like have a decent grip on philosophy, so it's not going to be like dumbed down philosophy. It'll just be kind of an overview, and then I'll tie it in some sense into theology, so it's more pertinent to our perspective. But it'll be a good base for those who don't have a base, because I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more of that stuff. And it's kind of underlying everything, you know? Come on, bring up them snakes, baby girl. Don't take someone's superstition out on the snake. Don't take someone's superstition out on the snake, bro. No, never. Never. We are the last people ever, Kat and I, to ever change anything ever based on what somebody else says. We are the last of them. Cold day in hell when that happens. Job 19. So back and forth, back and forth. Friends Job, friends Job, friends Job. Progression, for sure. Wildly intelligent. If you actually break it down and you read it consecutively, it's hard because we have so much time in between us reading it. But it seems like much of the same, just going back and forth. It's really not. And I feel like we've pointed out a good amount of the differences, a bit of the progression, because it really is just a literary masterpiece when you really pick it apart. And tonight there's some good examples of that as well. So now Job is replying to his a-hole friend, one of them. What did he say? Oh, God. Esmael said, all your bases belong to us. I feel like this is pop culture that I'm not aware of, because that's usually what this is. All your bases belong to us. Is this something I can Google? Oh, I think I got it. This is from... It is a quote. All your bases belong to us is an internet meme based on a poorly translated phrase from the opening cutscene of the Japanese video game Zero Wing. The phrase first appeared on the European release of the 1991 Sega Mega Drive. What? Wow. Yeah, Esmael just got major love points there. Good Lord. Throwback to 91 and 89. Basically. Man, I've never seen it. I'm looking at the meme right now. I've never seen it. Cats. All your base belong to us. Was he talking to cats, or was somebody's name Cats? Interesting. Thank God for Google, because I'm so freaking uncultured. Top shelf talk. Yeah, I feel like we've accomplished a lot. Merp, says Ruth. Nerd cred plus 100. All right. Then Job answered and said, Cat just yelled at me from downstairs. Happily. How long will you torment me and break me into pieces with words? These 10 times you have cast reproach upon me. Are you not ashamed to wrong me? And even if it be true that I have erred, my error remains with myself. So in the Old Testament, we've talked about it a bit in Genesis. We've talked about it somewhat in Job, but the numerology people will be all about the 10. These 10 times you have cast reproach upon me. 10 being and there's a disagreement about this, but like 10 is completeness or fullness. I've also heard 7 is completeness or fullness. I'm not privy, but I believe 10 for most numerology people is going to represent fullness or completion or completeness. And the one in Genesis we talked about very briefly was Genesis 31:7. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. We talked a little bit about that because that was a very dramatic section of Genesis. But also in Numbers 14:22, none of the men who have seen my glory and my sign that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and yet have put me to the test these 10 times and have not obeyed my voice. However, here, Job is basically trying to express that the friends have called him out, shamed him, humiliated him to a hard degree, fully. with completeness. It's not saying that they literally did it 10 times, because if you count it, it's not 10 times. And in those other examples, it wasn't 10 times. It's in totality, they've done this thing. And that's what it's kind of trying to express. Is this a Christian channel? Depends on what you mean by that. But yes, mostly Christians are here. I believe we have a Jew or two, and we've had some atheists come in and out. But yeah, it's majority Christian. But we are real people and don't pretend to be something we're not. So if you're referring to the conversations that are happening, then this is who we are. Unashamed. But I guarantee we read more than most. So if it's the education you're after, cool. If it's camaraderie, even cooler. If it's dry, no humor, let's pretend to interpret something that we refuse to actually put the time in to understand properly, then this would not be the place for that, in my humble opinion. Then he said, and even if it be true that I have erred, my error remains with myself. Resentment, pretty heavily, and very obviously, if you pay attention, going back and forth between the friends, he dramatically resents the friends in the way that they're choosing to interact with him. He resents that they won't give him sympathy, because he wants understanding, he wants sympathy to some degree, because they're your friends and you should kind of have that from them. When you feel like you're being punished for something that you didn't do and that you know personally you absolutely didn't do, but they believe he's in the wrong. So he's arguing that even if he did make a mistake, even if it be true that I have erred, my error remains with myself. It would not be any of their dang business, is basically what he's saying. They have completely injected themselves into his matters pretty heavily. Theologically, personally, they brought up the fact that his kids died and that they probably deserved it. So pretty harshly, they've entered his business. But he says they shouldn't. My error remains with myself. If indeed you magnify yourselves against me and make my disgrace an argument against me, know then that God has put me in the wrong and closed his net about me. A couple of things here. So he's using the same Hebrew term that Bildad did in his first speech, when Bildad had said that God does not pervert justice. Out of chapter 8, it said, chapter 8, verse 3 said, does God pervert justice, or does the Almighty pervert the right? And it's a rhetorical question, but Job kind of throws that same term back at him. Job obviously believes that he's being treated unjustly. He's being treated improperly. So much so that he believes he's being attacked by God. And then we go into great depth over the next couple chapters about some of the theological implications of this. And it's why it's such a powerful text theologically. Verse 7 says, behold, I cry out violence, but I am not answered. I call for help, but there is no justice. He has walled up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness upon my paths. I cry out violence, specifically about it's God's silence. And it makes me think of a really annoying cultural thing. What it's like, silence is violence. Isn't that the term? It makes me think of that, but that's not what he's saying, just to be clear. But Job is crying out for at first it was kind of that court scene. He wants at least a hearing. He wants to be told what he did, and he's not getting that. But at the end of all of it, he just wants justice. He wants answers. He wants understanding. He wants to actually be charged with something, because right now he feels like he's being punished with no charge, no prosecution. He wants justice though, and God has ignored him the whole way through. Behold, I cry out violence, but I'm not answered. And that's been kind of the theme, is that God has been silent. He has walled up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness upon my paths. Which is kind of a beautiful verse. It's kind of very poetic. You know what I mean? In chapter 1, verse 10, it said, have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? This was Satan talking to God. You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. So the Satan, from the beginning of the text, from the prologue, made an argument that the only reason Job was the way he was is because of, or at least partially, due to the hedge of protection, the wall of protection. So then here you have kind of a contrast where Job is saying that God has put a wall around him to prevent him from having peace, to prevent him from being able to escape what is happening to him. So again, the beauty of the author of this text was how much depth there is to the literary work of it, where they flip that context in the prologue of being what protected him to now being what is attacking him. The reason he can't escape. It's the wall that closes him in, not the wall that protects him from that which is outside. He has stripped from me my glory and taken the crown from my head. He breaks me down on every side and I am gone. And my hope has he pulled up like a tree. It's another reference to the tree imagery. We talked a lot about it last week, so I won't rant about it now, but it comes up a lot in this text. Several characters use it. It's in context to God as well, but this imagery of the tree. This specifically is a bounce back from also Bildad's words in 1816, which said, his roots dry up beneath and his branches wither above. So he's echoing that again about the roots of the wicked being dried up. And then there's going to be a lot in the next couple of chapters about this idea of the wicked and the problem of good and evil. And it's why I'm very much part of the camp that the purpose of the book of Job was theology, period. That's why we have it, because I believe that's what it actually teaches. But there's going to be a lot of that here in a moment. He has kindled his wrath against me and counts me as his adversary. His troops come on together. They have cast up their sage ramp against me and encamp around my tent. So a siege ramp, would normally be put up around a fortified city, not an individual family or an individual tent. It would be around a fortified city. So another example of when this is used is in 2 Samuel 20:15. And it says, and all the men who were with Joab came to, sorry, it just blurred out for me. Hold on. Who were with Joab came and besieged him in Abel of Beth-Makkah. They cast up a mound against the city, and it stood against the rampart. And they were battering the wall to throw it down. Sorry, it's so small. The text is so small. And then Daniel 11:15 also uses it. It says, then the king of the north shall come and throw up siege works and take a well-fortified city. And the forces of the south shall not stand, or even his best troops. But there shall be no strength to stand. So Job using this here in context of this idea that God has taken excessive measures against Job personally, attacking him personally. It also is a reference back to another one of Bildad's speeches back in the previous chapter, in chapter 18. He has put my brothers far from me, and those who knew me are wholly and estranged from me. My relatives have failed me. My close friends have forgotten me. The guests in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I have become a foreigner in their eyes. I call to my servant, but he gives me no answer. I must plead with him with my mouth for mercy. Kind of drama to just emphasize what's actually happening. I call to my servant, but he gives me no answer. Very dramatic. If even the servants reject you, it's trying to express this total status shift where he went from being a true master, extremely wealthy, prominent, to not even being able to get a word back from a servant. Ooh, the time change. Thank you, Patricia. Yeah, all of them are messed up. So I'll fix that when we get off. How in 2025 can Discord not know what's going on? Like automatically change the time. That's wild. Okay. Hopefully I remember to fix that. But yeah, all of those events are off by 1 hour, just as a heads up. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys kind of know what time stuff is at. But Tuesday night, in case I blow it, Tuesday night is at 7 o'clock Central Time. So if it says 8, it's wrong. Or if it says 6, it's wrong. 7 o'clock. Regarding Job, Go said, I never feel like God is attacking me, but sometimes I feel a sort of dance monkey feeling. What exactly do you mean by the dance monkey feeling? Like where he's trying to get you to do something? Or arranging things just so? Like dance monkey dance, do what I need you to do? Is that what you mean? Because I kind of feel that. Go said I chalk it up to subjective ego shenanigans. Interesting. I mean, that's one of like the greatest questions from this, though, right? Is how engaged is God in the world? Like that's one of the questions. On top of the problem of good and evil, which I believe it's in 20 and 21, which we're reading tonight. There's good depth to the problem of good and evil theologically. Tampa said, just dance like a good monkey, if so. Funny, but accurate. It's good advice. Just dance the dance. There are many times where I feel, I guess that, where I'm supposed to do something that maybe I have no interest in doing whatsoever. And sometimes where I think it's not even worth anything to do, but there's still like that impulse to do. Like regardless how you feel about it, do it. Don't care how you feel about it, do it. I get that. I definitely get that. I called him a servant, but he gives me no answer, so he's being ignored, showing the status flip, yada yada. I must plead with him with my mouth for mercy. My breath is strange to my wife, and I am a stench to the children of my own mother. Even young children despise me. Again, just showing the status flip. He can't get respect from a servant. He can't get respect from children, which even, again, like ancient Near East, children to adult, there was a much wider gap than there is today. Today, adults deal with children much closer in the respect sense than they did then. Like children were not people throughout much of history. They were like very small, barely people that had and deserved zero respect until they had grown. So it's even more of kind of a hit on the status and the culture. When I rise, they talk against me, which also just not a thing. Not a thing. Kids talk back today. We have a lot of reasons to believe that didn't really fly back in the day, even recent back in the day, 50 years ago. All my intimate friends abhor me, and those whom I loved have turned against me. My bones stick to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Have mercy on me, O you, my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. Why do you, like God, pursue me? So what? God is attacking me. Why are you attacking me? Why are you not satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Oh, that with an iron pen and lead, they were engraved in the rock forever. For I know that my Redeemer lives. And, well, this thing's so obnoxious. Here you go. For I know my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me. If you say, how we will pursue him, and the root of the matter is found in him, be afraid of the sword, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, that you may know there is a judgment. I wanted to read this. So for verse 25, Job expresses hope in his Redeemer. The Hebrew word used here is goel, G-O apostrophe E-L. Job has been pleading for an advocate before God, believing that he is unjustly suffering, and now expresses hope in a Redeemer who is alive and who will surely come to his rescue. Elsewhere in the Old Testament, God redeems his people from slavery or exile. As a Redeemer, he defends people's causes and delivers them from death. I thought that was interesting. It was interestingly said. Obvious, but interestingly said. Go said, I like having to navigate frivolous or arbitrary obstacles. Oh, like having to navigate frivolous or arbitrary obstacles. I dislike that feeling. I get that. Patricia said, are the obstacles a result of a broken system or something naturally ordained by God? See, that's a part of the question. Yeah. Yeah, and Ghost said so too. Yep, that's the question. That's the question. Mikhail said, heck, kids were used to clean up chimneys for crying out loud. Very true. Kids used to be useful. Now they're not. And I don't mean it in a rude way. I mean it kind of in a literal way. They're just not really useful. Like emotionally, they're useful. But they used to be like productively useful. Ghost said, I think it's broken system, still tiring through. Oh, still tiring though. Yeah, I tend to lean that way for Patricia's question. Are the obstacles a result of a broken system or something naturally ordained by God? I teeter, I suppose, of like from the standard Christian view, I would say that broken system. From a different non-traditional Christian view, naturally ordained. Like if creation was a result of not a good God, and not saying that means there is no good God, but if creation was the result of, or the natural order, the natural world was the result of a not good God, then that would be naturally ordained. That would be more like the Gnostic-ish view. From the traditional Christian view, I think you have to say it's the product of a broken system. Otherwise, you're really messing with normal Christian beliefs. A lot of them I feel like are this dumb system. I mean, true enough, yeah. As Mill said, I believe Redeemer is the idea of buying one back from a slaver or slave owner. Yeah, I would say. I guess depending on like the specific context. I would sit with that, yeah. Ghost said humans inherently understand duality. Job knew that they're the polar opposite of his suffering must exist in some capacity. Job knew that, oh, okay, so some kind of polar opposite of his suffering must exist. Yeah, and I think he knew that in actuality, and then I think he also knew that theologically. It comes through. I think it's somewhat a matter of like, how much can you push until someone breaks, I think is a part of the story. It seems. And then once you break someone, what does the redemption arc look like? Bringing them back. Mikhail said, for I know that my Redeemer lives. Is Job foreshadowing Jesus? You know, a lot of people say that. I, being the cynic, say no. But I think there's a good case for it. Because if you look at like, even elsewhere in Job, Job 16 also had a mention of the Redeemer, I believe, 16 or 17. And then if you go to Exodus, there's a mention of redemption. And if you go to Isaiah, there's a mention of redemption. Your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Like you have these other, and then obviously Proverbs and Psalms, Jeremiah also has. So it comes up, and then it's a matter of like, okay, well, is it foreshadowing of the Christ to come, the Messiah? The Jews obviously don't think so. Or is it just in reference to Yahweh? I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But I think you could develop a pretty decent case for either of them. I think the traditional Christian view is that, I guess I can't say that. It's probably pretty split, actually, now that I think about it. But I think you can make a decent case for either. Patricia said you could say the obstacles are created by the demiurge. Right, well, that's the idea. That's kind of the Gnostic view, is that this was all the product of something evil. And that Jesus came as the, from most, like obviously different sects and whatever, but a lot of them believe Jesus came to teach people so they had the true awareness, so they had gnosis and could move on. But yeah, they definitely believed in a different God. And I think there's a good case for that too, just logically. Not saying I believe it, but logically from the Old Testament, there's a decent case that, that like the God of the Old Testament did some stuff it's hard to sit with. It's hard to sit with, especially when you then flip to 400 years later, Jesus. I have a real hard time fitting those two as the same entity, personally. But I've talked about that a lot, so I won't rant about it. David said, Patricia asks the best questions. Yeah, she does. They always make me think so deep that my brain creaks. I keep WD-40 next to my laptop just in case. She does. Thus, it's very nice when we are graced with Patricia's presence, because she does. She points things out in question form that are really, really good. Go said, I agree with that towards something Esmo said, or even type of hostage negotiation, except there will be a time the negotiation stops. That was in reference to when he said, I believe Redeemer is the idea of buying one back from a slave or slave owner. All right. 27, I believe. 26. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me. If you say, how will we pursue him? We already read this, but it's fine. And the root of the matter is found in him. Be afraid of the sword, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, that you may know there is judgment. Let's see. We're good on that. All right. Chapter 20. Zophar speaks. The wicked will suffer. And this gets really good with the matter or the problem of good and evil. The theological issue of why do bad things happen to good people and everything that surrounds that. Why do good things happen to bad people? Why do wicked people prosper? This really gets into that. This conversation really gets into that. Therefore, my thoughts answer me because of my haste within me. I hear censure that insults me. Zophar is probably responding to Job, in a sense, threatening judgment that was at the end of his previous speech that we just read. He may also be referring, Zophar may also be referring to Job's sarcastic criticism in response to Zophar's previous speech. Hard to say. And then it continues, and out of my understanding, a spirit answers me. Do you not know this from of old, since man was placed on earth, that the exulting of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless but for a moment. That the exalting of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless but for a moment. Though his height mount up to the heavens, and his head reach to the clouds, he will perish forever like his own dung. Beautiful. Those who have seen him will say, where is he? He will fly away like a dream and not be found. He will be chased away like a vision of the night. The eye that saw him will see him no more, nor will his place any more behold him. His children will seek the favor of the poor, and his hands will give back his wealth. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, but it will lie down with him in the dust. Interesting about 11. Job in 17 said, where then is my hope? Who will see my hope? Will it go down to the bars of Sheol? Shall we descend together into the dust? You get these mentions of the dust. So Job earlier mentioned that he had this hope of during the court proceedings, that type of like imagery. He hoped to be vindicated. And then there was the mention of the dust. Here, now Zophar is kind of pushing back that there will be punishment due to his wickedness. The punishment of the wicked will not be delayed. They will die young and go into dust with their youthful strength. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, painting a picture of a healthy man. But it will lie down with him in the dust. That the wickedness will result in negativity. Bad things will happen to those who are wicked because that's their theology. That's what they're trying to get Job to believe. Job, these things are happening to you because you are wicked. You are not innocent. Because only bad things happen to the wicked. Though evil is sweet in his mouth, though he hides it under his tongue, though he is loath to let it go and holds it in his mouth, yet his food is turned in his stomach It is the venom of cobras within him. He swallows down riches and vomits them up later. God casts them out of his belly. He will suck the poison of cobras. The tongue of a viper will kill him. He will not look upon the rivers, the streams flowing with honey and curds. This was interesting. In Isaiah 7:22, it says, and because of the abundance of milk that they gave, he will eat curds. For everyone who is left in the land will eat curds and honey. Exodus 3:8. And I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Hittites. Oh, it cuts off there. But the milk and honey. Ezekiel 26. On that day I swore to them that I would bring them out of the land of Egypt into a land that I had searched out for them, a land of flowing with milk and honey, the most gracious of all lands. And then here in Job 17, he will not look upon the rivers, the streams flowing of milk and curds, or milk and honey comparison. So Zophar, again, is continuing to say that wicked will not go to this fruitful land. In Isaiah, it's talking about the land of milk and honey is this beautiful picture of what will be. Same with Exodus, same with Ezekiel. And Zophar is using that because it's obviously culturally a common understanding that this is beautiful and positive. And he's saying the wicked will not have that. The wicked will not look upon the rivers that are flowing with milk and honey. Ooh. Is Mr. Miyagi Daniel-san's Satan or Redeemer? Okay, hold on. I gotta catch up here. Eskimo said, I noticed a couple references in the New Testament to this chapter. Romans 13:4 says, for he is God's servant for your good, but if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. Okay. I mean, Romans is pretty in your face. No, just what the role is. Mr. Miyagi playing according to Daniel. Early in, Daniel sees him as an adversary, but in the end, he is Daniel's redeemer. Still the same guy, though. Interesting. That's an interesting comparison. The only thing that changes is Daniel's perspective, not Mr. Miyagi. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, actually. Yeah, there's definitely a similarity there. The kind of the structure of it, right? Patricia said, I left for a second. Who is Mr. Miyagi again? Yeah, it's from the Karate Kid. That's a good comparison. That's interesting. I definitely see the similarity there. I wonder, Esma, what do you think about the Romans verse? Me being the cynic that I am, I have an opinion. But I would assume it's not shared by most. Let me see real quick. I have a hard time with Romans in terms of like aggregation, because it is, in many cases, it is the data outside of the set. And that, like, predestination is a good example where, in my opinion, you can't steel man the Calvinist theology without Romans. And I feel like if you need one text to make sense of your entire theological view, you have a problem, in my opinion. Just because I'm all about the aggregation of everything. And so I have a hard time with Romans because of that. Because I feel there are so many outliers, data-wise. But I'd be curious about what anybody else's opinion is on that, I guess. Job said something about the sword is proof of judgment several verses ago. True. But there, so let's see. Because I feel like I could be wrong. But let me see. I feel like there would be other examples as well in, looks like Ezekiel 21. which is just after the section about the milk and honey, actually. And then Isaiah 34, for my sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment upon Edom, upon the people I have devoted to destruction. The Lord has a sword and is sated with blood. Jeremiah 25:33 has a similar image there. Jesus and the sword of judgment. You got like Matthew 10, Revelation 19, Revelation 2, with the sword of my mouth. And then even Genesis 3, he drove out the man at the east of the Garden of Eden. He placed the cherubim and the flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way of the tree of life. And then Romans 13, which you had thrown out, right? Yeah. So here's a good breakdown. God's direct judgment in this context of the sword and judgment. God's direct judgment. Ezekiel 21, Isaiah 34. Jesus' role in dividing truth from falsehood in that same context, though, Matthew 10:34. The final judgment at Christ's return in this context, Revelation 19. And then earthly rulers executing justice is the Romans 13:3. I'm sorry, 13:4. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Ghost said I'm having a really hard time agreeing with Romans 13. In what kind? That it relates, or in a different context? Leftover balsamic marinated roast beast or us. That sounds good. Roast beast, Patricia says. All right, I'm curious about the Romans verse. Esmil and Ghost too. I just really struggle with Romans for anything, and it's not good. It's negative. But I have a hard time applying that data to anything else. Total problem. Total character flaw. But I am aware of it, and so I just have to work around it. Where do we leave? 12. Though evil is sweet in his mouth, though he hides it under his tongue, though he is loath to let it go and holds it in his mouth, yet his food is turned in his stomach. It is the venom of cobras within him. We read this. Yeah, okay. We're on 19, sorry. All right. For he has crushed, and abandoned the poor. He has seized a house that he did not build. This was interesting. So it says, for the first time, Zophar mentions a specific sin, oppressing the poor by taking their houses. Relevant? I don't know. But it's interesting, if nothing else. It is the first specific mention of sin. So the first time something specifically has been said, rather than these very broad charges against Job. Oppressing the poor and taking their houses. It's just very interesting. So like from a literary perspective, was it on purpose? Was it intentional that the author put this very specific charge, the first real specific charge? Or was it just something that kind of happened as it was being written? I think both are very plausible. It doesn't really matter. Or it might. Who knows? Because he knew no contentment in his belly, he will not let anything in which he delights escape him. There was nothing left after he had eaten. Therefore, his prosperity will not endure. So again, pushing this idea of the wicked will not prosper. The wicked will be punished. The wicked will suffer. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he will be in distress. The hand of everyone in misery will come against him, to fill his belly to the full. God will send his burning anger against him, and rain it upon him into his body. He will flee from an iron weapon. Comparing here his suffering as an attack of God, in chapter 16, 12 to 14, it says, I was at ease and he broke me apart. He seized me by the neck and dashed me to pieces. He set me up as his target. His archers surround me. He slashes open my kidneys and does not spare. He pours out my gall on the floor. He breaks me with breach upon breach. He runs upon me like a warrior. And then in 19, we just read, 11 and 12, it says, He has kindled his wrath against me and counts me as his adversary. His troops come on together. They have cast up their siege ramp against me and encamp around my tent. So the friend, Zafar, is describing how God attacks, punishes people who are wicked, because that's the theology. Bad things don't happen to good people, Job. So therefore, you are evil. You are wicked. You have done something. You need to apologize. And Job does not agree. A bronze arrow will strike him through. It is drawn forth and comes out of his body. The glittering point comes out of his gallbladder. Terrors come upon him. Utter darkness is laid up for his treasures. A fire not fanned will devour him. What is left in his tent will be consumed. The heavens will reveal his iniquity, and the earth will rise up against him. The possessions of his house will be carried away, dragged off in the day of God's wrath. This is the wicked man's portion from God. These are all the terrible things that are going to happen to you because you are wicked. The heritage decreased for him by God. Okay. Esmil said, Job 19:29, be afraid of the sword, for wrath bring the punishment of the sword, that you may know there is judgment. Go said, the authority thing. It depends on what bowing, what bowing, gotcha. It depends on what bowing to authority actually means. I don't know. And then Ghost also said, how are we to hold convictions and live them out if we are required to submit to authorities with antithetical views? I don't get it. And also autocorrect is my arch nemesis. Okay, so where is the authority coming from, though? I guess maybe is what I'm missing. So Job 19:29, be afraid of the sword, for wrath bring the punishment of the sword, that you may know there is judgment. I think on its own, you could interpret that a lot of different ways, but in like one, the specific context is specific. But if we're going to extrapolate it, it could be interpreted a lot of different ways. And then Romans 13:4 was, for he is God's servant for good, but if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. I mean, I can certainly see the two verses coexisting. I think Mikkel has the right answer, and that is a sword emoji. That is the proper answer to this conundrum. Patricia said, isn't there a scripture on like not listening to authority if they are not righteous and honest or something? Yes, there is. There are several, actually. I don't know. I wonder, I guess, in this context, like we're talking about God. So I suppose I don't see an issue necessarily. And I think if you pull that out to different context, I think it would no longer apply. For he is God's servant for your good, but if you do wrong, be afraid. I think that's consistent with the entire Bible in terms of judgment, in my opinion. And I think Job is, I would never put them in the same boat because they're very different texts, but I think even Job kind of makes sense too. I think the thing to remember with Job is that everything is basically opposite day. Theologically, for the most part, it's opposite day. Like what is being said in most instances is meant to not be believed. So I guess just like keep that in mind too. Not all of it, but like a huge portion of it is like, this is a story of what not to believe. More than 50% of it is what is not correct, what is not true, who God is not, how God is not. Like those are kind of the principles or the lessons we're getting from this. If God instills both benevolence and malevolent rulers, which one do we listen to? But would we say that God installs both? I think here's kind of where the source of the problem is for me. If God does evil, it kind of flies in the face of what is taught. But why it's a conundrum is because the Old Testament clearly implicates God in evil. So then we have to make sense of that. And God clearly, at the very least, but certainly more, allows evil to happen knowingly. And I'm not talking about Job, because I think Job is a very special case, and I don't believe that's actually what's happening here. But all throughout the Old Testament, God is at best allowing it. God is at worst directly involved in it, in what us humans understand to be evil. Which is why it's kind of nice for the Gnostics, because they're like, no, I mean, this is all evil. That's evil God, bad God, demiurge. No, thumbs down. For Christians, and I think it's a much harder theological thing to cope with. But it's an interesting question. Does God instill both benevolent and malevolent rulers? And then which one do you listen to? I think that's actually a really, really good question. Because I think if you push enough people in that conversation, I think a lot of people would agree with that. I think a lot of people would believe that and just not really understand that they believe that. And then they'd have to get to the point of this question. And I think they'd have a really hard time answering that question. I think it's a fantastic question. Patricia said, your conviction would be coming from a place of acknowledging the authority of God. Ruth said, I've always been told God's law trumps man's law. Yeah, I mean, that's like general consensus, right? As if something conflicts with basically like the golden rule and that which surrounds it, then it's not to be adhered to. Esmel said, I just wonder if Paul is using that verse. I'm not sure if the guy in Job is referring to earthly authorities or not. I don't believe it's in reference to earthly authorities. I could at least say that. I don't believe that's what it's in reference to. It seems to be very, very specifically in reference to God. Paul using the verse, I guess, would not be at all surprising if that was a specific poll. That was kind of Paul's thing. We get a whole lot of that, right? Mikhail said, 1 Peter 2, 13 and 14, submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human authority, whether the emperor as the supreme authority or to the governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. Mikhail also said, and 1 Peter is under the new covenant. Right. But where is... So there, just like everything else in the New Testament, there's agreement in that. And then there's essentially the opposite, if I can find it on the fly. Okay, if anyone teaches a different doctrine and does not agree with the sound works of our Lord Jesus Christ and the teaching that accords with godliness, he is puffed up with conceit and understanding nothing, specifically in context to religious leaders. But Titus 1:16 also says, they profess to know God, but they deny him by their works. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for any good work. And then you have Matthew 7:15 to 16, which is similar, but it's not great. I think this is one of those cases where you have to aggregate. So like 1 Peter says what it says. First thing to do is go into 1 Peter and like break it down. What was going on? Who was it written to? Why was it being written? What else was being said? Like, why was that just a random thought? No, it's surrounded by quite a bit that really kind of drags it out and explains what's going on. Then we aggregate the rest of the New Testament and we compare notes. And in my opinion, Jesus did the opposite of that. So are we to do what Jesus did, or should we submit to local authority? And then that's the judgment call you kind of have to make. For me, like most things, the 1 Peter verse on its own, compelling. On aggregate, not compelling, because Jesus did not do that at all. Jesus flies in the face of what 1 Peter says. Just my opinion. But on its own, super compelling. Go said it hinges on knowing the difference between good and evil. Right. Exactly. Everything always reverts back to that, which will be solidified only in hindsight. So, right, like the 1 Peter thing, if the authorities are doing the right thing, if the authorities are ruling and leading in an objectively moral way, order is good. Like God is a God of order. So to me, it makes perfect sense that there's direction of stay in order. Like if you have leadership that is doing the right thing, if things are orderly, stay in order. But if things are disorderly, like Jesus's entire life that we have written down, Jesus there in response was disorderly to try to bring order back. What is that ringing noise? My bad, it's the alarm. Please subscribe and like. You're funny, dude. Mikkel said, Joe, and we must take in consideration that the writer of First Peter was put on in a prison by the government. Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. Great point. Yeah. I think it's just like everything else, man. It's very complicated. It's always so much more complicated than like, oh, the verse says this. Like, great. What else? What else? Because it's just never that easy. It can't be that easy. Just the nature of what it is. I think it's hard to argue that Jesus was like not completely a rebel in the face of governing authorities, in the face of religious authorities, in the face of scholarly authorities. Like he was the rebel of rebels, causing all kinds of problems. And because the system was disorderly, he responded in a disorderly manner to try to reorder things. So it makes sense in that context to me. Super important context. Yeah. Just great point to throw out there. The author, Peter, ? Love that. As us to pray for rulers who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. Is that? Oh, okay. Okay. Go said, I think I'll divert to Jesus. I think it's a safer move. Yeah. Whoops. Read yours.
Yeah. It's a PSA. It's very important.
A PSA, huh? David is adorable. Pass it on. That is a fact. Okay. I think we are not going to have time for 21. Okay. I guess we do have time for 21. Asmel said, I think the Gospels have a passive resistance against the Roman Empire and Sanhedrin, but thought the new kingdom of Yahweh was coming soon. Agree on all counts. Yeah. I think there was a definite resistance, and I completely agree that they thought the end was nigh, and were wrong on that, seemingly. But yeah, totally agree. All right, 21. The wicked do prosper. So the friend, his whole thing was about how the wicked don't prosper. The wicked will suffer. God does not punish anybody but the wicked. And now Job is replying to that. Keep listening to my words and let this be your comfort. Bear with me and I will speak. And after I have spoken, you can mock me. Obvious sarcasm. Because he has no part of him believes that they're actually going to listen to what he's saying. He has no hope of being understood by the a-hole friends. And so he sarcastically, which is my favorite thing about the Bible is the sarcasm, he's telling them to just shut up until he's done talking, and then they can continue to mock him. As for me, is my complaint against man. Why should I not be impatient? Biggest complaint Job has is against God, but also against the friends. So, like, a commentary will say that Job's key complaint is against his friends. Others will say his key complaint was against God because of, obviously, the affliction for no apparent reason. I think it's a pretty decent mix. It obviously starts with God and then kind of transpires into an issue with the friends because they don't understand what is happening by the hand of God, and none of them understand that it's not God. Look at me and be appalled, and lay your hand over my mouth. When I remember, I am dismayed, and shuddering seizes my flesh. Why do the wicked live, reach old age, and grow mighty in power? In direct contradiction to the friends, Job is saying that the wicked lead and live long, productive, powerful lives. It's in direct contrast to what the friends said, because this is the problem of evil. Why do the wicked live? Why do they grow old? And why are they mighty in power? Why do they live long, peaceful, productive lives? The friends said they don't. Job, throughout this, is going to be trying to help them remember, you know people who are evil and living long, productive, happy lives. So how can you have that theological view? Their offspring are established in their presence, and their descendants before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear, and no rod of God is upon them. So they're not being attacked by God. They're living perfectly peaceful. Their bull breeds without fail. So again, prosperity. Their cow calves and does not miscarry. Prosperity. They send out their little boys like a flock, and their children dance. The children of the wicked are safe and carefree. Again, in direct contrast to Zophar, characterizing them as the opposite, when he had said, his children will seek the favor of the poor, and his hands will give back his wealth. Job is responding to it in contradiction. They sing to the tambourine and the lyre and rejoice to the sound of the pipe. They spend their days in prosperity, and in peace they go down to Sheol. They say to God, depart from us. We do not desire the knowledge of your ways. What is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what profit do we get if we pray to him? Behold, is not their prosperity in their land? The counsel of the wicked is from me. So Eliphaz had attributed the suffering of the wicked to their defiant stance, their defiant attitude towards God. Job now, in contrast, says it has the same attitude, but it is saying that they are not punished for it. Whereas the friends say they are punished for it. Job is saying, no, actually, they're not punished for it. The people who do these things are not getting punished. Yet I have done nothing and am being punished. Then 16 said, behold, it is not their prosperity, is not their prosperity in their hand. The irony. So even though the wicked, in their defiance, reject God and are prideful about the fact that they do not worship him, do not pray for him, he would still attribute their prosperity, the calves, the bull, to God. So although they are not adherent to God, although they do not worship God, they are still getting the benefit of it, is what Job is saying. How often is it that the lamp of the wicked is put out? This was a direct throwback to chapter 18 when Bildad said, indeed, the light of the wicked is put out. The flame of his fire does not shine. The light is dark in his tent, and his lamp above him is put out. Job says the exact opposite. So it's a challenge to what Bildad said. And Job is basically saying, well, when does that happen? We know evil people. How often is it that the lamp of the wicked is actually put out, like Bildad said? That their calamity comes upon them. That God distributes pains in his anger, that they are like straw before the wind, and like chaff that the storm carries away. You say, God stores up their iniquity for their children. Let him pay it out to them, that they may know it. Job seems to be quoting somebody, because he says, God stores up their iniquity for their children. However, from what I see, the beginning of that is not in the earlier text. So 19 says, you say, God stores up their iniquity for their children. You say does not exist. Some translations seem to say they say. Some say you say. It appears that the original, the manuscripts didn't have either. And I don't know that that matters, but just saying. But he's basically saying that the wicked don't care what happens because they don't believe in anything. And he's also saying that at some point they should or they will face God and the judgment of him. Let him pay it out to them that they may know it. Let their own eyes see their destruction. Let them drink of the wrath of the Almighty. For what do they care for their houses after them, when the number of their mouths is cut off? Will any teach God knowledge? Seeing that he judges those who are on high, one dies in his full vigor, being wholly at ease and secure. His pails full of milk, and the marrow of his bones, the marrow of his bones moist. Another dies in bitterness of soul, never having tasted of prosperity. They lie down alike in the dust. So there's another mention of the dust, and the worms cover them. Let's see. I want to read this. So in reference to 26, they lie down alike in the dust, and the worms cover them. It says, Job cites examples of two different scenarios. One person dies after living a rich and secure life. Another dies after having a difficult and poor life. Ultimately, both die. Any prosperity enjoyed by the first person does not carry beyond death. The author of Ecclesiastes also makes this point in Ecclesiastes 2, 15-17, 6, 6, and 9, 2. And 6, 6, because it is the shortest, says, even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good, do not all go to the one place. Interesting. And then 9:2 is very similar, and 15-17 out of chapter 2 is also very similar. The principle, what is trying to be expressed, is essentially the same. Behold, I know your thoughts and your schemes to wrong me. For you say, where is the house of the prince? Where is the tent in which the wicked live? Have you not asked those who travel the roads? And do you not accept their testimony? So again, he's saying, you know these people, you've seen these people. What are you talking about? Good things happen to bad people all the time. The wicked prosper all of the time. This is him just trying to point that out, trying to say to his friends, have you not asked those who travel the roads? Have you not talked to people? Have you not accept their testimonies? You've heard this, have you not? That the evil man is spared in the day of calamity, that he is rescued in the day of wrath. Who declares his way to his face, and who repays him for what he has done? When he is carried to the grave, watch is kept over his tomb. The clods of the valley are sweet to him. All mankind follows after him. And those who go before him are innumerable. How then will you comfort me with empty nothings? There is nothing left of your answers but falsehood. The Hebrew term used, hevel, also occurs in one of the refrains of Ecclesiastes 1:2 and 12:8, which say, 1:2 says, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanity, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. 12:8 says, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. So essentially the same, but there is a slight difference. That same term is used. So it literally translates to breath or vapor. It can also be understood as senseless or absurd. The comfort of Job's friends was useless and unhelpful. It was a breath or vapor. It was senseless or absurd. I just thought it was interesting. It doesn't seem to be a word that is used often, but it's definitely there. Okay. Go said, just like the Mr. Miyagi example, the quality of a ruler is subject to the perspective to the people being ruled. Right. What?
Look at that knot.
That's a pretty good twist up. Pretty good little snack twist up.
This is for Mikhail. He said bring snakes.
Small snake.
Awesome.
Small snake. David said, I've been in several foreign countries in which the citizenry love their leaders, but I believe the leaders were tyrants. Mm-hmm. It's, what is it, Stockholm Syndrome? This Peter is more Christ-like prisoner than John of Revelation, in my opinion, says Mikkel. Interesting. I'd have to think about that for a minute. Okay, more on that from Mikkel. The author of 1st and 2nd Peter, although unjustly thrown into prison by the local authorities, he's asking his brethren to pray for them. It's a pretty Jesus thing to do, no? That's why I kind of make the comparison to the thing that was said in one instance versus the thing that was done throughout the entire New Testament. I think I lean more your way on this, though, Mikkel. I'm probably in that same boat. John also warns against taking the mark of the beast, which is explicitly calling for disobedience. Baby girl. Good Lord. Help me.
She didn't ramp. She didn't do the snake thing.
Good God. Esmel said, I wonder if this book was a response to the Babylonian exile and Job is representative of Israel in this time. That's kind of interesting too. I'd want to hear more about that from you. I don't know about that. But maybe with more of an explanation, I could be won over. I'm interested. Go says we still use hot air in a similar way, right? The breath, the vapor, very similar for sure.
Baby snake.
Baby snake. It is a baby snake. She's nice girl. She is nice girl.
Yeah, Iris isn't bad either.
Wow.
Did you get it?
Wow. Yeah, I got it. That was good. That was very good.
Say goodnight, Iris.
Good night, small snake. All right, I think we're done for anyone who needs to bail. I'm going to open the topic for Tuesday.
Oh, the poll.
The poll for Friday, right? For game night. Okay. Yeah, that'll just be times. So no, I need to do it. It's a very interesting angle. Yeah, Esmel, I'd like to read more about that. If you put it in Discord, please tag me. I'm curious. Yeah, snakes on Joe's neck. Empty nothings versus sweet nothings. That's well said. That's very well said. Ghost just said platitudes. Whisper empty nothings in my ear. Sounds very neutral. All right, forum topic thing is open in case anybody wants anything in there. Videos of any length are welcome, but just remember like a minute, 2 minutes, maybe 3. Like 2 minutes or less would be ideal, just so we have enough time to get through everything else. But if you find a short clip or a YouTube short, like an actual short, or something from Instagram or whatever, totally cool. Just want to make sure we have enough time. And then obviously anything else, like Ghost puts the galleries of images of super interesting stuff on one of the last ones. That was great. But whatever, that stuff's all there. So Tuesday, 7 Central Time, I need to change the times on the events. That's the other thing. I'll do that right when we get off. But 7 p.m. Central Time for philosophy stuff. And then Thursday, Book of Giants, Enoch. And Saturday, we should be good for the other half of Judas. And then we have to decide what to do next. But certainly something heretical. Root said, Joe, speaking of suffering, have you watched the movie The Shack? There was a brief discussion about it in Spirituality. I read the book, but it was a very long time ago. So I'd have to honestly say I don't remember really anything about it. I don't remember really anything about it at all. I read it in special college. Is it worth watching? Like if we sat and watched it, or can I listen to it? Because sitting down to actually watch something is extremely rare. But if I can listen to it, I would listen to it while I do other stuff. So if I can pull that off, then I will. Tuesday will be good. Philosophy is good stuff. Fun stuff. Mikkel is approving of The Shack. Need to watch. Just watch the movie. It was an awesome refresher. Okay. David said, I live in a shack.
Buddy.
Okay. We'll watch it. I was called a heretic for watching The Shack or for something else. But answer the question though. Can I listen to it or do I have to watch it? Is this something that I can have on in the background while I'm doing other things? Or do I have to dedicate 90 minutes to something? Because the probability of it happening goes up exponentially if I can just listen to it. Go said it's a good family movie, has opportunities to discuss important theological concepts. Okay, well then we'll watch it with the kid.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Will you write it down or something so I don't forget? Or put it in the list? I will never see it again if you text it to me.
I'm texting it to myself from your
Oh,
phone,
okay.
dingbat.
Well, you're reliable with that. I'm not. The phone dings and I've already forgotten it existed. Yeah, the Shack. It's really old. The book is really old. I don't know about the movie. Yes, for liking it, you probably could listen to it. No, well, we'll make it a family movie thing because I want to start doing that more often. We don't do that. We don't sit down together enough. Started quite the drama. Oh, God. I want to know about the drama. Where was it?
I'm going to go feed snakes.
Okay.
Enjoy your drama, big guy.
Thanks.
Actually, I'm gonna take you.
Oh, I missed something else in here from you, Ruth. Okay, well, when we get off, I'm going to catch up on whatever happened here. Oh, was this about the Shack? Yes, okay. Oh, man. Okay, well, I'll get caught up on all of whatever happened here. Tempted to list my God as a female Bible references, but thought it might be counterproductive. You are more than welcome to put whatever you want in there, dude. That's what this whole thing's about, is to talk about it. Feel free. You and my attention spans are racing to the bottom, Joe. Too many things to absorb. Yeah. It's just, it's impossible. It's impossible. And I keep thinking life will level out. We're not trying to conquer different large things, and it just gets worse. So I'm starting to become more pessimistic about me being able to like watch this movie that you guys recommend or stuff like that. It's not going to happen. I'm glad for the few times a week where I can sit and read Discord, where like I'll sit and I'll read what's being talked about, and I'll look at videos that you guys post and put them on 2x speed and listen to them. But like the idea of being able to do a lot of things just disappeared. Mill, I would love those verses. Yeah, I'm down. I have no problem with that. And I would enjoy to read that during one of my 5 a.m. read through Discord days. I would love to see it. I've seen some good cases for it. I don't agree with them, but I've seen interesting cases for like the female God concept. I think it's really hard to make work with the literature. I think outside of literature, I've heard like very interesting cases from not Christians. I've never heard a good case from Christians. So if your list is like from the canon, I'm definitely interested. For sure. Be very curious. I'd be curious too, just as a side note, anybody who has like a detailed expression of how you justify Yahweh and Jesus Christ as the same, without like the normal stuff that anybody would give, without the normal stuff that you Google and gotquestions.org has you covered. Gregory Boyd is a scholar who did a 2-volume series. It's probably 1,500 pages between the two of them. It might be more. I own them and I've read them, and it's mind-boggling, but I say all that to say it's a very complicated topic, and I feel like most Christians approach it from a very narrow, oh, well, it's because of this one verse where Jesus says, I am who I am. Like, okay, baby girl, that explains nothing. Especially when you understand all the titling of the Old Testament. Like, that was a normal thing to say. It wasn't this crazy thing that Jesus said, I am who I am. It was a normal thing to say. It's like saying, I am him. But I'd be curious if anybody has gone down that rabbit hole in depth and has like a truly well put together detailed thesis. I'd be curious because it came up earlier. And so I'm thinking about it, not for any particular reason. Y'all, we literally never sit down for anything except dinner or breakfast on the weekends. And only on the weekends. But yeah, very true. Even now, I'm home all the time, and yet I never sit. Too much to do all the time. The babies require lots of attention and love. Joe is also babies. I am also baby, and I require lots of food and love and attention for the 30 minutes we get together at night. Geoffrey said, I have found the female god within the Catholic religion. Are you talking about Mary? I don't mean to sound the way I just sounded. Also, we love you. I'm just curious. Or are you being sarcastic? I guess is also a question I need to ask. I understand you, Joe. About the Jesus and God thing. That doesn't surprise me. I think you would. I think Esmil probably does. I think Ghost maybe does, but I think Ghost probably disagrees with me about it. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's just one of those things you got to think about. But it's one that I never had a problem with until it's one that fits perfectly with the older I get, the more I realize the less I know. But also the older I get, the more I learn. Just like total data, right? Like you have a couple gigabytes, then you got 10 gigs, then you get a terabyte, then you've got a panel of terabytes of just all of this data. And it all cross-references each other. And eventually you get to this point where you're like, it doesn't fit. Like, no matter how badly I want it to, no matter how many times somebody tells me it does, the data does not fit. So then what? It's tough. It's tough. Tampa said, I've been thinking about the Yahweh versus Jesus thing. I have some thoughts. I would love to read it. So if you put it in Discord, or if we talk about it at some point, I'm going to roll here in a minute. But if we talk about it at some point, whatever is easier. I don't want to make you type a novel if you don't want to. Maybe next Tuesday, we just literally talk about that and have it be kind of an open discussion. I don't care. It's up to you guys. But if you put something in Discord, I would definitely read it. And just because I feel like I don't say it often, I read a lot in Discord. I just don't comment because like the amount of time it takes to read what's being talked about versus like interjecting myself is there's a huge difference. And so I can either like respond to one thing a week or two things a week, or I can read like probably 80% of what goes on in there. And I choose to read it because I'm curious about what y'all are talking about more so than I feel like throwing out my opinion. I feel like that's not as valuable. I get a lot more value from just reading it. So I'm able to read a hell of a lot more than if I inject myself into the conversation. Just so you know. In case you think I don't care. I do it because I do care. And I'd rather read you guys' opinions than give my own. Barbello is the only female god I acknowledge, Ghost said. Fair enough. Geoffrey said, no sarcasm, I have found a female soul. What is before her physical existence? ? Just like the sun existed prior to getting a human body. I feel like you can't just say that without explaining more, Geoffrey. I have found a female soul. What does that mean? What is before her physical existence? ? Well, I also have that question. So do you have an answer? Just like the sun existed prior to getting a human body. I'm genuinely curious if you're down to explain more. I do have to go. So I would love to read this explained more on Discord. Like very much. I'm very much interested, but I need to go. I've been building a website for a couple weeks now, and it's driving me insane. Go said Yahweh is the maker of the simulation, and Jesus is him entering it through layers of subjectivity. That's my snapshot answer. I think that's a good snapshot answer. Totally value your opinion, Joe. That's not what I mean. Like, it's not what I mean. I'm sure my opinion would be good. I just mean, like, do I give my opinion on something and then get to do that twice in a week? Or do I read 80% of what happens in Discord every week? It's like, that's the toss up of time that I get. So every once in a while I'll say something, you know, but I would just rather consume what you guys are doing, because I talk a lot, you know, like I talk all week in terms of our little group here, but I don't get to really listen a lot. And so Discord is kind of my opportunity to listen. So I like that, and I do that. Goes that I'm never truly satisfied with my model, though, always refining. That's how I feel every single day about every single topic, so I totally understand. Ghost also said all souls are female, in my opinion, and all spirits are male. We've talked about that briefly. I definitely want to hear more. But we have had snapshots of that conversation too. That would also be a great conversation, though, yeah. Ghost, have a good night. Ruth, have a great night. Is Yahweh the Father Jesus referring to? See, that's the question. That's the question. And we don't have time for it tonight. But that's the question. That is what I'm going in extreme depth on lately. Is Jesus God thing. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm saying it ties into that question. Is Yahweh the Father Jesus is referring to? Well, is Jesus the Messiah that the Old Testament is referring to? Because they're all connected. All of these things are connected. Jesus says, after tonight, I need to buy more WD-40. I totally agree. Hard to explain on this chat forum. Well, that's why Discord, it's not hard to explain. So I hope you go to Discord and explain. And with that, I love y'all. Have a wonderful evening. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Philosophy is what we're talking about. Philosophy. Falafel-y. Theology, philosophy, and falafels, which I don't really know what that is. I understand it to be some kind of pancake. Is that true? Like crepes? Crepes?